Night fell on the village earlier than usual. The sky was thick black as if covered with velvet, and the moon barely broke through the heavy clouds. Only a faint glimmer of stars tried to illuminate the river, which wriggled among the forests like a huge snake. It was calm, almost still, but its waters held a mystery. A fisherman named Amadou sat on the bank, holding an old net. The air was damp, smelling of damp earth and rotting leaves. The sounds of the night surrounded him. Crickets chirped somewhere, an owl hooted loudly, and the river quietly whispered its ancient stories. But suddenly everything stopped. The wind died, the crickets stopped singing, and the silence was so heavy that Amadou stopped breathing. He looked at the river and froze. There, in the middle of the dark water, barely visible in the moonlight, was a boat. It bobbed on the waves as if someone had just let it go, its hull reflecting the faint moonlight. The boat looked old but solid, as if it had just been pulled from an ancient dream. Something about her was strange, appealing, as if she was waiting for him. Amadou felt a chill run down his spine. He had never seen this boat before. The river, where he had fished since he was a boy, was familiar to him in every detail. But the boat standing in front of him now was as if it came from another world. His heart raced and his palms sweated. He could not take his eyes off the boat. It was calling to him. No, she didn't make a noise or move, but Amadou knew he had to come. His feet, as if guided by an invisible force, stepped toward the water. Each movement felt slow and heavy. The air smelled of damp wood and something ancient, like ash and honey. "Who left her here?" he whispered, feeling his voice drowned in the silence of the night. Amadou picked up an old oar lying on the bank and stepped into the water. It was icy, as if the river had hidden all the winters of the world inside it. His feet sank in the soft silt, but he kept going. Finally, he touched the boat with his hand. Its wood was smooth and warm, which was strange, for the night had been cold. Amadou felt his heart freeze and then beat faster. "Are you waiting for me?" he asked quietly, not even expecting an answer. The boat rocked as if in agreement. His hands trembled, but he climbed in. When he sat down, it was as if the world around him had changed. The river was wider, its waters deeper, its silence deeper. Amadou took up the oars, and the first movement filled him with a strange energy. The boat glided through the water as if it knew where to go. Amadou grunted, and with each movement the air around him grew denser, heavier. He felt a strange feeling come over him. At first it was a slight fatigue, as after a long day, then came a coldness that penetrated his heart. With each paddle he felt he was losing something important, but he couldn't figure out what. "What's going on?" he whispered, his voice trembling. The river remained calm, but now it seemed alive. The water around the boat whispered something, as if trying to warn him. Amadou looked at his hands and noticed that they had turned pale, as if the blood had gone from them. A slight fear gripped him, but the boat kept moving and his body, as if mesmerized, kept rowing. Suddenly a mist descended on the river. It was thick, milky, and smelled of dampness and something sweetly rotten. Amadou felt his consciousness becoming cloudy. Images began to flash before his eyes, the faces of people from his past, his mother calling his name, his wife looking at him sadly, and his father standing on the riverbank nodding silently. "What does this mean?" Amadou exclaimed, his voice full of despair. But instead of an answer, the boat kept moving. The water became as dark as night, and the air around it seemed motionless. Now Amadou felt his soul separating from his body. With each row he lost something more than just strength. When he finally stopped, a strange scene opened up before him. The river was no longer a river. It had become an endless sea, with the moon hanging over it, casting a silvery light over everything. And in the middle of this sea he saw an island. Small, surrounded by black trees, it looked like a drop of darkness in the middle of the light. The boat stopped on its own. Amadou realized that this was the end of his journey. But what awaited him on the island? "Are you taking me away?" he asked, looking at the water as if expecting an answer. But there was no answer. The boat rocked, and Amadou felt his body grow lighter. He couldn't tell if he was alive or dead, but a sense of calmness swept over him. He closed his eyes and the world around him dissolved. When Amadou opened his eyes again, he realized that the island was just around the corner. But what he saw made his heart sink. The trees, black and twisted, looked like shadows frozen in agony. Their branches reached upward as if asking for help, and their roots pierced the ground and went deep, as if hiding from the light of the moon. Shadows looked up at him from the shore. Their silhouettes were blurry, but in each Amadou saw something familiar. The faces he had seen in his dreams were watching him now. Their eyes glowed with a dim light, and their lips whispered something he couldn't make out. They weren't just ghosts, they were memories, his own fears and regrets. "Why are you here?" he exclaimed, his voice echoing across the desolate sea. The shadows did not answer, but stepped forward, their movements slow and tense, as if every part of them were chained. The boat docked itself at the island. Amadou felt his feet stepping on the sandy shore. The sand beneath his feet was strangely hot, as if the island held the heat of an old flame. With each step he felt the strength leaving him. His breathing grew heavier, his legs trembled, and his heart beat as if it were about to stop. The air here was thick with the smell of leaves and bitterness. Amadou coughed, but kept going as if his will no longer belonged to him. The boat was left behind, but now his path was clear. He had to go to the center of the island. Suddenly a tree appeared in front of him, huge and ancient. Its bark was black as night, and there was not a single leaf on its branches. It looked dead, but Amadou could feel it breathing. This tree was alive, and its breath echoed in the fisherman's chest. Amadou approached the tree, and his hand, as if against his will, touched the bark. In that instant his mind was filled with images. He saw his life, every moment, every mistake. He relived the days when he had failed his loved ones, the moments when fear had prevented him from acting, and the moments when he had turned his back on those who needed his help. "That's the price," whispered a voice from right inside his head. The voice was deep, as if it came from the heart of the tree. "A price for what?" Amadou whispered with difficulty, his voice trembling with terror. "You came to find yourself, but every stroke you made took a piece of your soul. Now you face the truth. You must choose, to regain all that you have lost, or to stay here forever." In that moment, Amadou realized, the boat was a trap. It was calling to him, promising something more, but with every row he lost touch with himself. He remembered feeling tired as the memories began to fade, leaving a void in him. He knew now that each paddling was a step toward becoming just like the shadows on the shore. "I can't stay," he said, his voice firm despite his fear. "I have a family, I have a life I want to live." "Then accept your pain," the voice replied. "Accept every mistake, every loss. That's the only way you'll be able to walk away." Amadou felt something squeezing his chest. All the weight of a life lived was weighing down on him. He saw how he had lost loved ones, how he had let go of dreams, how he had retreated in the face of hardship. It was unbearable, but he knew he had to get through it. When the pain subsided, Amadou opened his eyes. The tree was gone, the shadows had melted away, and the river surrounded him again with its quiet whisper. The boat waited on the bank, its hull no longer glowing. It was now just an old boat that looked like it was about to fall apart. Amadou got into the boat and started rowing back. This time each row brought relief rather than pain. The air felt fresh, the smells of damp earth and grass returned, and the sounds of the night came alive again. When he reached the shore, his heart was heavy but peaceful. The fisherman never saw that boat again, but he knew that the river kept it somewhere in its depths, ready to call to those seeking the truth. Every time he looked at the water, he remembered the night he almost lost himself, but found something more important. If this story touched you, leave a comment. What do you think really happened to Amadou? Subscribe to our channel to hear more incredible stories that make you think and feel shivers on your skin.